right. Well, I getting here a little bit late. I thought that I was ready to start the show, and then I was like, "Wait a minute! I think I have to go to the bathroom." So I figured, well, I better take care of that. And so I have to admit that the 9 p.m. Eastern time schedule, the start of this show, crept up on me a little bit this evening. Of course, this is Unfound live for August 3rd of 2026. Hope everybody had a great week. It's been, the weather here has not been the greatest. It's been, it's one of those things where, let me put this down a little bit. All right. It's one of those things where at some point in the day, it is actually nice, but still, it can be very overcast. Then you'll get some nice, it'll be blue skies, and all of a sudden, it gets gloomy again. Like today, got up ugly, and then around 6:30 this evening, got beautiful out. But so it's the good weather. It's been a little bit of a struggle for the sun to peek through here in the Clearwater Beach area the past week. In fact, it's been going on for a while. But I have a fantastic show for you tonight. You can see here up there in the title the topics that are guaranteed to be covered. I want to talk about I think it is 1996 disappearance of Robert Mohney, not Money, Mohney, Mohney. It seems that his disappearance has been getting some local attention where it occurred. It sounds like local police department is putting new attention into his disappearance from 30 years ago. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Going to analyze it. Not a lot to go on, but I'll do my best. I have a follow-up. In fact, I meant to do this follow-up last week and didn't get to it. I wanted to follow up on the death, the violent incident that happened in my hometown of Leechburg, Pennsylvania. Must have been, a month ago. I do have a follow-up on that that I want to discuss, and maybe this can even take us into a even though it is woman stabbing woman to death, that I still think there are some items that we can learn from this in regards to disappearances. And you'll remember, this is where I started the talk off by saying that the building or the home that this happened in, this home used to be a gay bar near where I lived. You don't know how strange that comment is unless you were from there. That might remind you of when I talked about it. And then I also want to discuss active shooter situations, specifically because what happened a few days ago in Twin Falls, Idaho. We had a guy with a rifle going around. Now it turns out that at least 3 people have been murdered and several have been injured. And given that is part of true crime too, so I want to talk a little bit about that and my insights into it as a person who has guns, who tries to be aware when I am out in public, although I'm not out in public much. But for example, when I go to the coffee shops that I go to, when I go to the grocery store, when I go to trivia, these kinds of things, a possible situation like this, is on my mind. So I'm going to pass along just some of my insights on that. I really don't have a lot in particular to say precisely on what occurred there. I'll do a little bit of that, but it's more an overarching idea about the whole predicament that we run into in the United States, maybe situations that we run into in the United States, which don't have a high probability of happening in most of the rest of the world. So I'm going to get to all three of those topics. I have some other things lined up, other topics lined up as well, of course. I'll always come to the microphone prepared. While you are watching or just listening, maybe you're riding around, playing this on your phone with Bluetooth, whatever you may be doing, so you don't have to watch me. Keep your eyes on the road. But there are a variety of ways that you can support what we do here. Just if you are watching tonight, listening right here on the live show Monday night, you should make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Please, if you are new to Unfound, finding it for the first time, you can hit the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Variety of ways to support Unfound: patreon.com, paypal.me/Unfound podcast. If you are in the chat room tonight and you can hit the super chat button like Nephew Charles has already done and support Unfound that way. And then if you are on YouTube tonight or at any point, you can hit the join button and support Unfound that way. There is a difference between just being subscribed to the channel, the YouTube channel, and in fact, now that I'm thinking about that, I didn't put it on my notes, but there is something I need to say about the YouTube channel eventually before I'm done tonight. Hopefully I'll remember. But there's a difference between being subscribed and actually being a member of the channel. Subscribing, of course, you subscribe to it, hit the bell button. Anytime videos are posted, you get alerted. Whereas if you are a supporter of the channel, you get some things that other people do not, some things early, including the newest Found episode that is now up there for YouTube supporters and, by the way, Patreon supporters. So what has gone on since we all got together last? Well, most importantly, I had my birthday. It was just a few days ago, August 1st. And it was pretty standard birthday. And by standard, I mean pretty boring. Not much went on Saturday. No strippers, nothing crazy. Really just took it easy. I cooked myself a steak that came out really good. I also made had some baked potatoes with that, a couple baked potatoes, to be honest. So I cooked the steak on the George Foreman grill, and I cooked the baked potatoes in the air fryer, and for about usually they say about 40 minutes, but in doing like 40 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit doesn't quite, I've just noticed it's not long enough. It just doesn't seem like they're totally done. So I kicked it up to 50 minutes at 400 degrees, and I think they came out done this time. They certainly were still not overcooked. Certainly not. And I put the olive oil on it, and I put the salt on the outside of it, and they came out really good. But still, even at 50 minutes, not overcooked. Maybe because multiple were in there. Maybe if I just had one potato in there, maybe 40 minutes would be enough. It's hard for me to say. But everything came out great. And so I can cook for myself. I don't just cook chicken wings, although I haven't cooked chicken wings in quite a while now. I keep telling myself I need to do that, but just haven't gotten around to it. And I don't have any chicken wings here to cook, so I have to go buy them first. But I did that. And then I went and played trivia on Saturday evening, and we came in second place. Could we have come in first place? Maybe, just hard to say. No, probably not really, because the other team got the final question and we did not. So, I guess we just had to be happy with second place. It was third place a week and a half ago. It was second place. We came in first a few weeks ago, so that's okay. As for my other trivia team, we're not in first place overall anymore. Just had a couple down weeks. Just a bit off our game, but we're still tied for second place overall. I think we're in good position. We are due, I think, for another good showing, another first, second, or third, maybe this coming Wednesday. So trivia was, I guess, above average this past week, but of course I'm comparing it to where, the teams were on finished first 3 nights in a row. I went from a Saturday to a Wednesday to a Saturday, all finishing in first. So that does great things for my ego. But getting back to my birthday, got a card from my dad, got some money from my dad, got a lot of birthday wishes on Facebook, got birthday wishes from my brother and my sister. And so it was pretty regular birthday. But I have to admit, the only birthday, no offense to anybody, but the only birthday that really sticks out to me, they kind of all just go together. And when my mother was alive, I would go back to Pennsylvania, and she would have everybody over, and would have, she'd have a cake and everything else, and it would be spectacular. And that was all good. But even those kind of all run together. No offense to my mother putting that all together. But the one birthday that there are actually two birthdays that really stick out to me. One was 1993 when I was back in my drag racing days. I went drag racing. It must have been a Friday evening or Saturday. And I ended up winning the whole thing. I won like $200 or something like that in my first Mustang GT. And so that one really sticks out to me. August 1st, 1993, when I turned 23. And then the other one that sticks out to me was when I first started at Star Trek. And so that would have been 2000. So when I turned 30, everybody sang happy birthday to me on the bridge of the Enterprise, where we had in Las Vegas, the show that we did. My castmates, coworkers sang me happy birthday on the bridge, and that was also pretty cool. Those are a couple birthdays that stick out to me. Me turning 21 was not a big deal because I've never been a drinker or anything. So those are two that really stick out to me. And the rest of them, no offense to anybody in particular, it's not meant to offend anybody. They kind of all blend together. So I'm 56. And as I was telling in a message, my longtime friend, Shay, sent me birthday wishes. And I sent her a voice message back to her. And I was telling, 56, turning 56, not that big of a deal. I would certainly rather to be 56 than 26. For the most part, 20s. My 20s, once I got to Vegas and got past working at 7-Eleven, my 20s were great. But up to that point, not so great. Could I deal with being 36 again? Absolutely. My 30s were, there were a couple tough times in there and everything, but for the most part, 30s were pretty good for a lot of different reasons. 46 again, don't really care to be 46 again. So being 56, not so bad. Certainly rather be 56 than 26, but anytime magically, if I could go back to my 30s, I would certainly take that. I would certainly take starting at 30 again, like when they did sing to me Birthday on the Bridge, and just start there and live my 30s again. That would be pretty cool. But that's not going to happen, at least the way we perceive time. So let's see who's in here, and then I will move on to other things. Hello, Charlie. Good to see you tonight. Sarah LaFord. It rained like crazy in Jersey, then turned hot. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened here today, LaFord. Humid. Yeah. Hello, the cake. Thank you, Charlie. Lisa, good evening, Ed and everyone. Well, good to see you, Lisa. I hope your daughter had a great birthday. The pottery thing that you told me about, Lisa, interesting choice. Sandra, thank you. Appreciate it. LaFord, I think I had to be one of the first. I think you were, LaFord. LaFord was one of the first people to wish me a happy birthday. Thank you, Colt. Really appreciate it. And thank you again, Charlie. Man, you're doing it up tonight. My nephew, Charlie, very generous. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it. So in other news, actually, the power, I know this is going to sound really weird, but the power kind of went out in the building here today. Now, when I say kind of, what do I mean? It is actually possible with this, I don't know, the way the electricity is set up in this building, that half the power can go out, and then the rest of the electricity is fine. And it varies seemingly from condo to condo. I know that sounds like the most insane thing you've ever heard, but it's true. I was going down a little after 9 o'clock this morning. I was going down to the gym, and I noticed something went on here, and I thought, uh-oh. And like I said, we had rain and there was lightning and everything. I came back into my condo, and the refrigerator and the microwave sits basically next to each other, just like in any kitchen. The refrigerator worked. The stove and the microwave did not. Whatever circuit they were on was not working. The refrigerator, which sits right next to it, was working. In addition, I couldn't turn the lights on in the kitchen, but the refrigerator worked. Then over here in the guest bedroom, the closet light would work, but the actual light in the bedroom would not come on. In addition, the new rock and roll music stuff that I put up in the windows over there, they wouldn't come on either in the same room. And then coming over to my bedroom over here, the main bedroom with connected, bath and shower and everything, the lights would come on in the bedroom. The light would not come on in the bathroom or in the shower. But my water heater did work. Now go figure that out. All true. But then I went down to the gym and started talking to a woman down there that I see down there all the time. Her name is Colleen. And she was telling me about her own condo. She also had the same situation where there were certain things in her condo that were working and certain things that weren't. Her refrigerator was out. There was no electricity going to her refrigerator. So the power goes out. My refrigerator works. Hers doesn't. I don't know. I have no idea. but it took a little while. I was down at the gym. The gym was fine. Everything, the electricity down there, all the treadmills and everything, all fine. So I came back up here. Everything was still kind of messed up. Took a shower and everything, got out of here. And then I came back later and everything was back to normal. So this is very common. Very rarely do we have a situation where all the power goes out. Like during the during the hurricanes, common. Of course, the power was out for a few days during them. But otherwise, if you have a lightning strike or something like that, it is amazing how it'll just be half the building. And you'll have one elevator that's working and one that's not. And lights work here, lights don't work over there. I don't know who wired up this building, but it is strange. Lisa says she had a fun party. Thank you. All right. You're welcome, Lisa. All right. Pottery party. Well, okay. I've never gone to do pottery. I guess it's where you get the thing spinning, and you do that whole what movie, Ghost thing. I've never done that. I'm sure if I did, there would just be clay stuff flying all over the place. It would just be a mess. But if they all had a good time, I'm happy about that, Lisa. Anything else going on? Not. It's really been just a very laid back week. My brother and his wife Lorraine have now been on the road for 2 weeks, and they've made it the whole way up to Niagara Falls. Got some pictures from my brother from them being up there. Took some pictures of Lake Ontario, so they are having a good time. They will not be back until October, so I'm hoping to go to some playoff baseball games once my brother Brian gets back. Speaking of baseball, my Pirates made some moves today for some pitching, so it doesn't seem they are giving up on the season yet. So I am very excited about that. In fact, I was watching them this evening before the show started, and they were up 4-0 on the Brewers in Milwaukee. So let's just take a look and see what the score is now. Oh, no, it's 4-3. Oh, no. Oh, boy. Gonna be interesting. Something must have happened. Bubba Chandler must have blown up or something. 2 outs. Let's see. Did he give up a home run or something? No, just seems some timely hits or something. Wow. All right, so they've brought in another guy now. Yeah, 5 Ks, 4 walks. Yeah. Oh, there must have been an error somewhere too. Oh, well, it's going to be tough. But they have not given up on the season as of yet. I think they made some nice moves today. No hitting, though. Just all pitching moves. All right, let's get to tonight's programming. And I want to start, being that I wanted to talk about this last week. I want to go and do this hometown murder, going back to this news from, like I said, about a month ago when I talked about it, because it was so unusual, although I did say that there had been another murder in my hometown going back to about 1985, and then it's been another 31 years before, or 41 years before another one has occurred. Or no, there was a murder. There was actually a murder in Leechburg maybe 15 years ago, maybe the third. I don't live there, so I don't keep tabs. In fact, the young guy that was murdered, like I said, was it 15 years ago? I actually went to high school with his father. Very sad. Very sad. So I'm going to read this follow-up story about this stabbing that occurred in my hometown. All right. An elderly Gilpin woman, Gilpin is Gilpin Township. An elderly Gilpin woman was stabbed 245 times. 245. In a fatal attack last month, the Armstrong County coroner said Thursday, this is a couple Thursdays ago, Armstrong County, once again, is where I grew up. So we have Armstrong County, then the township within that county is Gilpin, where I grew up. And Armstrong County is actually where I worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation while I was in college. Coroner Brian Myers gave the shocking number during his testimony in a preliminary hearing for Menki Mona Zhang, 37 years old. She is of Asian race, who was held for trial on 1 count of criminal homicide and 2 counts of aggravated assault by District Judge James Andring. Police were dispatched to a Gilpin residence on Shenley Road a little after 4:30 p.m. on June 28th, so over a month ago. And once again, this residence is formerly a restaurant that then became a gay bar. And I mean, it was so run down and everything when I left. And I guess people must have bought it and turned it into a house. News to me. Upon arrival, and it looks like it's pretty nice. I mean, they really did a nice job with it. Upon arrival, police found Rosalind Cooper, 79 years old, dead in the dining room of her home. During the hearing, Myers described Cooper's body as mutilated. Stab wounds were found on Cooper's legs, neck, abdomen, hands, and wrists. He said blood loss from her injuries was the cause of death, I guess. Cooper's body was found by her son, Nathaniel Cooper, Zhang's husband. So this woman, Rosalind Cooper, was killed by her daughter-in-law. That is who this Mona Zhang, Z-H-A-N-G, that is who this woman is. Once again, Rosalind Cooper, 79 years old, was killed by her daughter-in-law, Menki Mona Zhang, 37 years old, and Mona being married to Rosalind's son, Nathan. Wow. Nathaniel testified Thursday that his wife was angry about Nathan's sister visiting town. Zhang was yelling as she walked around the couple's home before leaving at 4 p.m. June 28th, Nathan said. He witnessed his wife, Mona Zhang, ride the family side-by-side, which is like one of those ATVs. They call it a side-by-side. Across the driveway between their home and Cooper's, and parked the vehicle in Cooper's garage, Nathan testified. So if you were to look at a map, Google map, satellite view, you would see 2 buildings. One, the bigger one, I would say, is the place that used to be the restaurant, used to be the gay bar, that is now where Rosalind Cooper and her husband's still alive. He wasn't there at the time, where they lived. And then there's a driveway. On the other side of the driveway is another house. That is where Rosalind Cooper's son, Nathan, and his wife, Mona, lived. Once again, if you take a satellite view. So they lived right next to each other, knew each other well, everything else. They were not estranged, it doesn't seem, or anything. But Nathan's wife found out that Nathan's sister was coming back into town, and it seems that Mona, the wife, and Nathan's sister, her sister-in-law, had an ongoing problem with each other. And I'm going to get back to that in a moment. Well, she found out that the daughter was coming back into town. I forget where she lives. Nathan testified in this preliminary hearing that he thought his wife was going for a walk. Zhang and the sister have not gotten along since an incident in 2017. Nathan states that the day of the stabbing started normally until Zhang learned about the visit. When I told her my sister was visiting, it was a complete 180-degree switch, he said. A bit later, Nathan said, his wife came back holding a knife and told him she had stabbed his mother. He thought it was a joke at first, but then ran over to his mother's home to check on her. When he saw her body, he began yelling for someone to call the police. Rosalind Cooper's husband, Steve, had left the home at around 4 p.m. to close a shed at the Kiski River campsites. The Cooper family runs this campsite right on the Kiski River. Kiski River empties into the Allegheny River, which then goes down and merges with the Monongahela at Pittsburgh to form the Ohio. Kiski River goes right through my hometown, Leechburg, Pennsylvania. And the Coopers have run this campsite for 50 years. Like, I have to admit, even though they've done this and everything, I don't know this family. Even though I lived there until I was 28 years old, I don't know who these people are. Steve Cooper said he returned about 4:30 p.m. and found the doors locked. He said he ended up entering the home from the second floor through an attached garage. He heard his son yelling when he got inside. He came running and said Mom was hurt. He followed his son to the dining room where he saw his wife's body. She was lying in a pool of blood. Trooper Stephen Law was called in to assist with Zhang's interrogation as an interpreter for the state police. Does she not speak English or something? If you see her, she is of the Asian race, but she doesn't speak English. I don't know. He testified Thursday that Zhang admitted to arguing with Cooper and grabbing a knife from the kitchen. She admitted to slashing and stabbing Cooper in her hands and stomach. The attack occurred on the first and second floors of the home, so it sounds like she was chasing Rosalind Cooper around her own house inside. Blood was found in a second floor bedroom and hallway, according to photos presented at the hearing. The blood trail led down steps into Cooper's living room and dining room. Trooper Greg Dorick testified that Zhang was found that evening barricaded inside her nearby home. Zhang refused to cooperate with responding officers and threatened to kill them if they entered the house. At 1:10 a.m., so maybe, 8, 9, 10 hours after it occurred, Zhang came out of the home and was taken into custody. Zhang told the trooper told police during the interrogation, she went home with the knife and washed it in the clothes she was wearing at the time of the incident. She told him she took a shower. A trial date for Zhang has not been set. That is, as Cult is saying, pretty disturbing. It is pretty disturbing. This, like I said, I wanted to cover this week. This last week, didn't get to it. So the story is, as it was written, is probably almost 2 weeks old. And I can tell you, when I read it, I was like, wow, there was a lot more to this than I imagined. And even though I still have friends who live there, one of my best friends of all time, Brad, he lives in West Leechburg. He didn't know anything about it, didn't have any inside information or anything. And, so me reading it, this story that was on triblive.com, is no different than anybody anywhere else reading it. I was reading the stuff 245 times. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. As you can, 244 wasn't enough. That has to be one of the highest stabbing counts that I have ever heard. Has to be. Even when you think back to what was the book, Murder on the Orient Express, not to ruin it for everybody, but all of the passengers stab one passenger to death. That was only 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. This is 245. How do you even go about counting that many? And in addition, it's obvious that Rosalind was trying to get away from the woman. She was being chased by this woman who had the knife. Now you should know, I looked up Mona Zhang's criminal record. And the only thing that I could find was, guess what? An assault charge from that very year of 2017. So once again, going back to the actual story again, I'll read it again. Where is it written? Zhang and the sister had not gotten along since an incident in 2017. So I think it's not crazy to say that something happened in 2017 where Mona attacked the sister. So that's where you have this assault charge in 2017. I'm going to think that we're talking about the same incident. Now, did she go do any time in jail? I don't know. I don't know. Did she plead guilty? Did she get probation? I don't know. But it is something, as a guy looking at Nathaniel Cooper, who I don't know, even though this is my hometown and I knew people with the last name Cooper. In fact, I have cousins on my mother's side with that last name, and it's not related to this family, I don't think. I don't know who these people are, even though they've been running this campsite for 50 years, which means they were running it when I lived there. I really didn't go down to the Kiski campsites that much. Really wasn't my thing. So I don't know. But so Nathan continued to be married even though his wife assaulted his sister. It's just something that I'm thinking about here. But we also have to remember all of these people lived next to each other. So it was Rosalind Cooper and her husband, Steve, who lived in the old gay bar building, refurbished. It's really nice now. Once again, you can go, if you can find it on Google satellite view, you'll see it. Really nice house. And Nathan, their son, and Mona, his wife, lived just across the driveway. So to get to their houses, you use the same driveway. So they were seeing each other all the time and everything. And then out of nowhere, Mona goes across the driveway and stabs Rosalind to death. Even though probably, I guess, they would get together for 4th of July. Well, not this year. Birthdays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, probably had been getting together all these years. And it sounds, at least by reading this article, that I guess that Mona and Rosalind, her mother-in-law, I guess usually got along just fine. I mean, they are living right next to each other and everything. You'd think somehow, I guess they got along. And then just out of nowhere, because of the sister going to be coming to town, Mona loses her mind, goes over there, and stabs Rosalind to death. This is, if there is, hello, Maureen, how are you? Amy says, frenzied overkill, yikes is right. Yeah, certainly overkill, Amy, to quote a Spectacular Men at Work song. But, of course I'm talking about it because it's my hometown. It's a very unique story. You don't get too many situations like this, I guess, when people, family members living right next to each other, seemingly getting along for the most part, and then all of a sudden, one of them just goes across the driveway and stabs the other to death, especially it being woman on woman, which is the least likely, I think, type of murder in the United States. I got to believe it's more likely that women are killing men, or maybe just in self-defense or something, certainly. It's such a unique situation. But being that we're in the disappearance business here at Unfound, what can we take away from this? Is there anything about this that we should remember when we think about disappearances, whether it's this Friday or next Friday or wherever, or even looking back at all of the disappearances that have been featured on Unfound. We're coming up on the 10-year anniversary. Is there anything we should keep in mind, even though this is an outright murder? I mean, is she going to plead insanity or something? I don't know. It does seem to me to be in the first degree. It seems like this wasn't an accident or anything. She went over there with the intent to kill, her mother-in-law. But it does sound like there might have been something mental going on here. But I think, first of all, for disappearances, we need to remember this is how quickly something can go bad. This is how quickly. That's all. Seemingly, I mean, this is the story. Now, if there is a trial, maybe there's going to be more to this. I don't know. Amy says, family relations gone bad. Yeah, really, really, really bad. I mean, it's not like maybe like they were just wrestling in the front yard. I think, if you're around family long enough, you're going to see people arguing with each other and people storming out and everything else. And then if you take it to the next level, maybe a couple guys getting in an argument in politics or something, and they go at each other. Maybe the cops don't show up, or you have something like that. We have varying levels of bad family relations. But this shows you how quickly something can go bad. As Nathan himself said, it started out as a regular day. And even when he knew that his wife was not happy about his sister coming into town, when she went over to his mother's house, he said what did he say? He thought she was just going for a walk. He really didn't think much about it. And even when his wife came back and said, I stabbed your mother, he thought she was joking. I mean, I know how bizarre that is, but it's what else are you supposed to think? I think I don't blame him for thinking that, because it does seem the way he portrays it, it really did come out of nowhere. So when we think about disappearances, and we think maybe we might be drawn, when we think of a murder like this, we think about all of those disappearances where wives have gone missing. And the guys are like, well, we just have no idea what happened to our girlfriends. We have no idea what happened to our wives. And certainly with some of them, we have guys who are bad. Guys who have history of violence. There was domestic violence within the relationship. We have guys with criminal records, guys on drugs. And we have stories about how the women in their lives were going to leave them. We hear a lot about that. But we also hear a lot about relationships that were seemingly fine, and still a woman goes missing. And we start thinking, well, man, what could have gone wrong if we're going to, because a lot of people, and even the police too often, are like, well, it doesn't seem like there was any problem in the relationship, so it doesn't make sense to be suspicious of the husband or of the boyfriend. We never got any calls to this house. The guy doesn't have a criminal record. She never complained about, even if she didn't call the police, she wasn't complaining to her family about how the man in her life was possessive or violent or anything else. And it's very common for the police to just go start looking elsewhere. Whereas I'm inclined to think it's much more like what we're seeing with this murder. Something just goes out of hand so quickly. Because I think we're all just sitting around. Of course, none of us know these people. And we're thinking, why would she really get so upset about her husband's sister coming into town? Even if they had a problem 9 years ago, wow, that sounds crazy. But then we think, well, if she's that crazy, then why is he still married to her? I mean, was she really on such a fine edge? Once again, this is why I continue to say common sense and logic, anything along those lines, they're not helpful when analyzing disappearances. There is no amount of logic or common sense, anything, A plus B equals C, 1 plus 1 equals 2, that can explain what happened there, except in her own mind. But for the rest of us, we're trying to use our own, sensibilities to analyze it. And we just say, this is crazy. But it happened. As I continue to say, it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be factual. And this is factual. Now, I think what we would also say, let's change it. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's switch the scenario up a little bit. And Nathan and Mona didn't live across the street. They lived 20 miles away. And it was, but the same scenario where they're talking and Nathan tells Mona, oh, my sister's going to be coming into town this weekend. And they have an, argument about it. And Mona's all ticked off. And she says, well, I need to blow off some steam. And she goes out for a drive and then comes back later. And it seems like she's fine. And then it turns out that the mother in her own house in Gilpin Township has been stabbed to death by somebody. Somebody went up to the house and stabbed her 245 times, blood all over the house. The knife is still there. Nobody saw anything. Would any of us be thinking maybe that Mona did it? Now, her alibi might be weak. She might say, well, I was just driving around and everything. And they might go do forensics on her car, any of Rosalind's blood in the car and things like that. But I think would be more likely thinking, what would be thinking? Well, this sounds like some robbery gone wrong. This sounds like some burglar who thought maybe nobody was home at the Cooper residence and Rosalind was there. And so this guy thought, or guys thought they had to kill her because she saw them. That's where your logic takes you. That's where your sensibilities takes you. That's where your common sense takes you. And guess what? You'd be wrong. Way off. Instead, it would be, the daughter-in-law who seemingly was getting along with the mother-in-law just fine, and then just goes off. We have to remember this for disappearances. We've had many disappearances like this where it seemed like the relationship was fine, and then it wasn't fine. Maybe we think about Angela Green, who coincidentally is also Chinese, just like I think Mona Zhang is. Seemingly, she and her husband had a perfectly fine relationship. They had, the daughter maybe is doing some things, and the father and mother Angela have maybe a difference of opinion on what the daughter should be doing with their life, going to school. I forget the exact circumstances. Of course, she was a guest. Angela Green's daughter was a guest for that episode. And then Angela Green goes missing. Even though no history of domestic violence, no police showing up. The husband of Angela Green, no history of violence, no criminal record, nothing. Of course, he told all those crazy stories afterward that she went to the hospital and that she died in the hospital, and then there was a death certificate that nobody's seen, on and on and on and on and on. Of course, he's still walking around a free guy. But this is the kind of thing that I visualize. I know I've explained these things to you many times, trying you so you can see inside my head, being that this is my job, and we're all learning together, and I'm passing along ideas to all of you. But this is what I visualize for this murder out there in Gilfin Township when I'm thinking about disappearances where it seems like everything was fine until it wasn't. And of course, with those disappearances, we don't have the crime scene like was here, with blood all over the place. And had Mona, I don't know, somehow put Rosalind in that, what do they say, side-by-side ATV and take her off and dump her in the woods, I guess it would be a disappearance, at least for a little while. Of course, you'd have all the blood and everything inside the house. And we really haven't had anything like that in Unfound's history, something where there was so much forensics left behind. As you know, we rarely ever talk about blood and fingerprints and all that stuff. It's just, usually it's just not that helpful. So the next time I talk about, somebody, this is something, a spur of the moment, as I've described before, husband and wife get into an argument, things go that one step further, and something that's never happened before does. This is a good example of that, although it doesn't necessarily have to be as violent as this killing did, with 245 stabbings. I'm much more inclined to believe when it's men and women, the guy strangling the woman to death, something like that. We also have to remember, just as another good example of this, although certainly different situation, although the video is still linked in the discussion group on Facebook, when we start talking about how things can happen so quickly, and once again, why logic and common sense and all of that stuff just doesn't work, is that video of the police officer. Was it a state trooper? Was it a local cop? I forget. He pulls up on a young man in a car who has wrecked his car, lost control, seemingly, allegedly, and ran into a tree or something like that, just sitting there along the side of the road. The cop comes up on it. He and the young man, I'm guessing this kid was in his 20s, early 20s. They're seemingly having a perfectly normal conversation. It doesn't seem like the kid is high. Doesn't seem like he was drinking and driving. He's by himself, not displaying outwardly any reason for the police officer to be worried or anything. And the cop even asks him, are you okay? And the kid says, yeah, I'm fine. Something like that. And then within a couple seconds, the kid goes for the cop's gun. And I think the cop had to shoot him. Like I said, if you're not familiar with this video, if you are in the discussion group on Facebook, it's in the featured. It's been tagged as featured. You can see it for yourself. It's been up there for a while now. I'm going to guess at least a year. But I posted it and saved it on there because this is also a good example of how things don't have to make sense to be factual, to be true. People can totally seem fine and everything else, but you don't know what's going on inside their heads. Now, in retro, of course, like I said, the police officer comes up to that scene and just thinks, this kid lost control of the car. Maybe he was speeding or something. And it's clear to me in the video that the cop does not think that the kid was, intoxicated or anything. And the kid does not act. He's not slurring his words. He's not stumbling around, nothing. He's just standing there acting. He just seems like a person who was in a wreck, and he's a little, the adrenaline's running. He's a little freaked out, I think, as we all would be. But now in retrospect, what do we think was going on? It's obvious to me this kid was trying to kill himself. It's obvious to me that the kid ran his car off the road and ran it into the tree or whatever, hoping to kill himself, and he didn't succeed. So what he did was he turned it into tried to do a suicide by cop. And guess what? I think that's exactly what he got. Did he die from it? I forget. But that's exactly what it turned into. Doesn't make any sense. Totally not logical or anything, but that's what happened. So this murder in Gilpin Township, same thing. 2 women living across the driveway from each other. I'm guessing got along just fine. Maybe we'll hear more about, maybe they had an ongoing, feud or something. Maybe eventually if this guy does go to trial, we'll hear more about something. But they were the ones living across the driveway from each other. And she just wakes up. All she needs to hear is that the sister's coming into town. Now, what this beef was about, I haven't seen anywhere what the beef was regarding the sister. I have no idea. But it was enough for Monig to go over there and stab Rosalind to death. Of course, innocent until proven guilty. That's all it takes. I don't know. Hello. I'm a dinosaur. Greetings and salutations. Good to see you. I'm a dinosaur. I also saw your post from, I think, yesterday on another video. Rockford, good to see you tonight. Another case that doesn't make sense is the Maddox case you covered in the Found episode. Yes, just listened this morning. Surprising there was no initial coverage, but I digress. Yeah, what Broadford is bringing up for you Patreon supporters at the $5 a month level and above, and for all of you YouTube supporters, I did the most recent Found episode where I cover a disappearance to discovery. And I chose to do a case that I mentioned last Monday. And that was Joshua Maddox, a young man who went missing, in 2008. And then he was found in 2015 when a local cabin was torn down. He was found trapped in the chimney. Once again, no logic, no common sense is going to get you to that conclusion, but that's what happened. And I think all these people are conspiracy theories. Will somebody put him there and everything? I'm not inclined to believe any of that, but I do that Found series. You want to take part, you got to sign up at Patreon at the $5 a month level, or sign up, hit the join button on YouTube. Thank you for mentioning that, Rockford. I'm a dinosaur. Yeah, there's flocking cameras. Yeah, you made a comment on that. You certainly did. Yeah, there's flocking cameras. So that is the murder or the killing. I guess they're going to charge her with murder, but it's so unusual. So something, 245 times. I have to believe that the lawyer is probably going to try for some sort of diminished capacity or something. I also wouldn't be completely surprised if we found out that Mona had some ongoing mental health issues. That wouldn't surprise me. If she doesn't, if she's just been a straight shooter, straight laced all these years, then that is even going to make it even more bizarre. But yeah, that like I said, when I talked about this, that happened. Drive time 5 minutes from the house that I grew up in Gilpin Township. 5 minutes, something like that. Not far. 7 minutes. You talk about the rolling hills of Pennsylvania. That's what we're talking about. Marty's here. Everybody say hi to Marty. Marty also had a birthday on Saturday. He and I have the same birthday, August 1st. What did you do for your birthday, Marty? Hello, Shree's in here. Ink and Innings. Hi, everyone. Remember in the early days when we all changed our Facebook profile pics to Iron Man for your birthday? Good times. I don't remember that, Sheree. I should, right? It's rude of me not to remember that. So I apologize that I don't remember that, Shri, but thank you for bringing that up. And Shri, great to see you tonight, and thank you for the birthday wishes that you sent me. Let's move on to some other things. Rockford already brought out the Found episode, but I also want to talk about the Unfound Now episode that I got done. Did it on my birthday. That was the recent disappearance of David Marsh. And that is free to everybody. That is right here on this YouTube channel right now. It's a guy allegedly was driving from Mississippi to Illinois, but for some reason his car was found abandoned in Arkansas. And this is at least the third disappearance I've featured on an Unfound Now where somebody, goes missing during a trip. I have my ideas regarding this, as I expressed in that episode. I hope you will check it out. But David Marsh, he went missing back there, at the end of May, I think it was. So we're talking just over 2 months ago, I think. And seemingly was a decent guy. His family has done interviews. His car was found abandoned in Arkansas on a road or in the middle of a cornfield. It had a flat tire. Please go check out that Unfound Now episode. Now I look at it, I ask questions, I do my analysis, and then I give you my prediction as to what happened to David Marsh. Also, in the umbrella of Unfound, the newest Your 2-Minute Disappearance lesson is out. Just posted it this evening. And it is what to do when a disappearance happens to you. You find out a family member, a close friend is missing. What should you do first? So that is out. I hope you will check that out as well. And then also we had the Think Tank last night. If you'd like to be part of the Think Tank, patreon.com/Unfound podcast. Sign up at the $12 a month level or above. And it was, I think, the first time, and the Think Tank's been around since 2019. This is the first time that a guest took part in the Think Tank. And so Joyce Rivituzzo, the mother of the McDaniel sisters, Joyce was actually in there when we had our discussion regarding the disappearances, of course, that are still unsolved 47 years later. And so Joyce was able to add some things to the discussion, and we had quite the showing of people. But the only way you can access that, though, is you got to sign up at patreon.com/Unfound podcast at the $12 a month level or above. Of course, you get a lot of other things, but that is the thing that people seem to like the most when we get together on Sunday evening. That's our very, very, very private club. It's a one-of-a-kind thing of people getting together and privately talking about the disappearance that that we get into deep regarding opinions. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong regarding the disappearance for that week. So I'm a dinosaur. Ed, what do you ultimately think about the Nancy Guthrie case? If you have time, I can answer that right now. I've talked about it before. I'm a dinosaur. I got some time here for a few minutes. I haven't mentioned her in a while. Although I'm a dinosaur, if you'd like to check it out, I do make an appearance on my friend Dee's channel on Thursday evenings where we have discussed Nancy's disappearance. I'm still where I was back in late February when I first started to form my opinions on her disappearance. I'm a dinosaur. I continue to believe that the person who did this, seemingly a guy, if we're to, the mask, and it seems like there's a beard, it seems like it was a guy. I continue to believe that it's somebody who knew Nancy. Looking at many disappearances and outright murders of women of AARP age, let's just say 65 and over, overwhelmingly, when they disappear or when they are murdered, it's by somebody who knew them. Overwhelmingly. Now, you may say, well, that's not very, it's even a higher percentage than the rest of the general population. Now, what does that mean? Why hasn't it been solved? Why is she still missing? That's harder to say. But when I say that, it doesn't necessarily mean that whoever did this knew Nancy really, really, really well. It could be, it's kind of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing, whereas the guy who's in the video or in the ring bell camera, whatever you want to call it, could it be the son of one of Nancy Guthrie's friends? Could it be the son of one of her neighbors? This is just examples. There are no facts to support these things, but I'm just trying to explain what's in my head. Could it be, was Nancy, Nancy Guthrie, probably, given who she was and everything, probably involved in a lot of civic activities and groups, maybe at her church or wherever else. Did she tick somebody off? Not meaning to, but did she tick somebody off and that's all it takes? This is where I am on this. I have no facts to back that up. But if you really start looking at crime committed against 65 and over women, this is what you will see. But given that she, given who she was and given who her daughter was, and Nancy had been on TV and everything, it's a wide range, wide group of people who it could be, in contrast to your just average, I think what she was in her early 80s, just your average early 80s woman. Nancy Guthrie was known by way more many people than your average 80-something-year-old woman or even 80-something-year-old man. So that makes it more complicated. But to me, it still doesn't change my calculations. And certainly it's not some guy just was randomly going through the neighborhood and just decided randomly to stop at a house. And guess what? He just happened to be at a house where an elderly woman was living by herself. That did not happen. Whoever did this knew that she lived there, knew she what her age was, knew she lived by herself, knew quite a bit. So like I said, somebody knew her, but a lot of people knew her. This is kind of like Jody Huisentruit all over again. If Jody Huisentruit was just your average, how old was she? 24, 23, 24, 25, somewhere. She was just your average 20-something-year-old woman who was, instead of being on TV all the time, let's just say, what could she be? Let's say she's an accountant. And she's attacked coming out of her apartment. The number of people who would have done that are would have been such a minuscule amount. Of course, we'd be looking at ex-boyfriends, whoever else. But being that Jody was on TV and had been on TV for a while, and so she was kind of famous, and it was easy for people to find out where she lived. All they had to do was look in the phone book, which is, in 21st century terms, the craziest thing ever. It really, really opens it up to a wide range of people who could have been waiting for her that morning. So it's the same way with Nancy Guthrie. I agree with you that I also think couldn't have been someone who just was wanting to create emotional pain for her daughter. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't. Is it possible? Can we conceive of that? Yes. But, once again, my insight into disappearances in general, and even when we start getting into, we have to remember there have been famous people who have been kidnapped. Of course, even Frank Sinatra's son got kidnapped. It's usually not some sort of revenge thing. Now, of course, with Frank Sinatra, it was a ransom. Now that all fell through. A lot of people think Nancy's abduction was a ransom. I do not. I think all this ransom stuff has been total crap. Just a bunch of opportunist kooks out there. I know what you're saying. There are no facts to rule out to try to cause pain for Savannah, but I don't know. And certainly she's in pain. Okay, if that was it, the person succeeded. But would it not, if it's really about pain, I'm a dinosaur, then shouldn't Nancy have been found by now? I mean, if you really, really, really wanted to hurt Savannah, then shouldn't Nancy have been found deceased by now? Instead, because as long as Nancy's just missing, there's the hope that she is alive. So Savannah's, still has some hope. And I, of course, hope Nancy's still alive too. But if it's all about causing pain, then, you leave Nancy somewhere that she's going to be found and she's going to be deceased. Marty says it's a very odd case. It's unique. It's certainly unique, Rockford going back here. It was nice to have Joyce in the tank and get some real-time feedback and reactions from her. What a strong and resilient woman. It can't be easy to revisit that. Yeah, certainly. I like Joyce a lot. Amy says, I believe it was personal. Yeah, it's a very odd case. I think it was personal, but that doesn't mean it has to do something with Savannah. I would also say, there are, a lot of famous people here in the United States. And most of their parents are still alive. How many of them have been murdered? Of course, Michael Jackson's father was murdered. Guess what? The person who killed Michael Jackson's father, the way I remember it, didn't even know it was Michael Jackson's father. That's the way I remember it. And if we would go the opposite direction, Bill Cosby, I know what everybody thinks of him now, but Bill Cosby's son was murdered. Guess what? The way I remember it had nothing to do with it being Bill Cosby's son. So it's an idea. What you're expressing there, I'm a dinosaur, is an idea. I just don't think it's statistically very likely. Rockford, to me and Guthrie, with your earlier observations, we need to throw out common sense in the Guthrie case instead of focus on local kooks, right? Michael Jordan's father, not Jack. Michael Jordan. Yeah, the basketball. Did I say Michael Jackson? Wow. Okay. Michael Jordan's father was murdered, right? Yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you, Rockford, for Michael Jackson's father, Joe Jackson. Yeah. Michael Jordan's father was murdered. And like I said, Bill Cosby's son was murdered. He pulled over to the side of the road to help somebody and got murdered by a woman and her boyfriend. Were they Russian or something like that? It's just so on the fringes of my memory. Yeah, Michael Jordan's. Thank you. Sorry for saying Jackson there, confusing everybody. Trying to make a great point and messed it up. Fishing. Hello, fishing. So I get why we so often default to, well, it was connected to somebody famous. It must have to do with the famous person. There are just too many examples to the contrary for there to be some sort of really solid rule regarding it. Moving on, I want to talk about this shooting. Just, I don't know if I want to get into the specifics of it because there aren't a lot of details right now, but I'm sure most of you have seen the video and read about this mass shooting. At least three people murdered, several people injured. One shooter with a rifle, some sort of AR or AK pattern rifle, running around shooting people. There's a video of some resident there, local guy who got his own gun out, a legal person who shot back at this guy. And it was then right around that time that that this shooter decided he had enough of that and ended up shooting himself. As so many, it's something how many of these shootings end up exactly like that they go in, they shoot up someplace, and then they kill themselves. Maybe the most well-known one probably is Las Vegas. That was after I moved from there. That guy shot all those people at that concert, and then as the police were coming in, the guy shot himself. Obviously, this guy had no escape plan. I think this is what he was planning to do the whole time. So, Rockford, Mia Zapata, another good example. Yeah, she was well, I know who she is. Yeah, punk scene and was killed in a random attack on the street. Right. Another good example. Had nothing to do with her being a well-known punk star. Nothing. Random. So regarding shootings like this, how are we supposed to think about them? What should be on your mind when you're out there in public and everything else? The most important thing to understand is they're not going away. I'm not here to take a position on gun ownership or anything. I don't do politics, political topics, or anything like this. I know what the Second Amendment is. I know there's arguments all over the place. Most of you know that I am a gun owner. I have 2 pistols, 2 rifles, and a shotgun. I carry my gun here in Florida. And but on the other hand, I don't know if I'm a gun guy or a gun person, anything like that. But if you are, if you look at what we do with guns in the United States and think, well, we should be more like Europe, we should be more like Australia, that's fine by me, but you just have to understand guns aren't going away. If that's your position, fine by me, and that can be argued through voting and amendments and laws and everything else. That's the way we do things here in the United States. But the fact is, guns aren't going away. And so you have to figure out a way how to live with them being around. It's no different than a disease or anything else, that this disease is not going away. We might think of it like, if we, being the something from my lifetime, like AIDS. Of course, nobody hardly even talks about AIDS now. People, by the way, are still getting AIDS, but of course, there's all these drugs out there. And of course, Magic Johnson's had AIDS since 1991. He seems to be doing just fine. We've made a lot of strides in there, and I'm ecstatic about it. I'm happy for all those people. I'm very happy about it. I mean, I remember. But you go back to the 1980s, and when they finally figured out what it was, and there was no medication for it, there was no way to slow it down or stop it or anything. It's like, well, AIDS exists. What are you going to do about it? This is how it's transmitted. We know that, an inordinate amount of the gay male population were susceptible to it because of what they were doing. And a lot of them continued to do it. Once again, not making a judgment. They want to do that, fine by me. But AIDS at that point was not going away. And even today, it's not going away. We just know how to control it now. And it's just really maybe in 21st century terms, we don't think about the idea, it's still out there and people are still getting it. It just doesn't kill as many people as it used to. In fact, I would say probably that as many people as I know now at 56 years old, I'm sure at least a few of them have AIDS, and I have no idea. And I'm happy they're here. Thank goodness for all the medication, and I know it can be expensive and everything else. But it's kind of just like that. It's not going away. So what choices are you going to make regarding it? And there are people who want to shoot other people. That's not going away either. And I think what we've seen with these kinds of shootings is that either these people have mental health issues, which I think is what we're going to find out with this guy, or it's these people just have some sort of death wish. So it's suicide by cop, very much just like how we talked about the kid who tried to kill himself by ramming his car into a tree. That didn't work. And then he tried to go for the cop's gun. Doesn't have to make sense, just has to be factual. So if you are a person who doesn't want to, own any guns or anything like that, it's fine by me. But it's also clear that these things aren't going away. And so if something like this happens, you will be at the mercy of the person who has decided to do this. Now, the trouble, all of you should really be watching the channel, the Active Self-Protection channel. It's, I don't go and habitually or, every day, daily watch of many YouTube channels, but that's one of them. Where John Correa looks at public shootings and, from video cameras or whatever and analyzes them and gives good insight in what should be done, what shouldn't be done. If you're a clerk working in a 7-Eleven and some guy comes in with a gun and sticks it in your face, what should you do? And, self-protection and self-defense. And all of that. And I think he does a really good job. He did really good analysis of something that I talked about. The two people got into an argument over a parking space, and the woman ended up shooting the man and killing him. But this stuff isn't going away. But the problem is these people who do this, they have the advantage. We don't know when they're going to do this. We don't know when they're going to show up. We don't know where they're going to show up. Everybody who went to that In-N-Out Burger and that shopping center on that particular day did not know that guy was going to show up with a rifle and start shooting people. So these bad people that do this, they have the initial advantage. You may say, well, they shouldn't have guns in the first place. I know. If you want a perfect system, it's not going to happen. If you're relying on perfection to keep you safe, good luck with that. If you're relying on background checks and gun store owners always making good decisions and everything else, it's probably not a good, safe way to live your life. So they always have the advantage. And you could say, well, if that starts happening, I'll run this direction and I'll run. Well, that presupposes that you're far enough away to do that. And a lot of people, usually what happens in shootings like this, the people, like we heard that at least 3 people were murdered. Most likely, I don't know this for a fact, but most likely those 3 people were probably the people closest to the shooter when it happened. No time to react. None. And even, even I could say if they'd have been carrying guns, might not have mattered. because the bad guy has the element of surprise, and then it's required, it's the responsibility or whatever, and then everybody else has to react on how they're going to get out. Do they want to run? If they have a gun, do they want to shoot back? And then that's at least what one guy did. And coincidentally, the guy has his own, I guess, gun channel and everything. So coincidentally, he was there at the time. And I don't think he ended up hitting the bad guy. But it does seem that just a little bit of resistance that this bad guy faced was enough for him to say, I guess I'm going to call it a day right here and shoot himself. But I know for myself, as a guy who is a gun owner and a gun carrier, I know when I'm out, even when I go down to my car, and I live in a secure building here. We have a security guard, although they don't carry guns. Out here from my building right here in Gulf Boulevard, when I get down to the first floor, even though there's pass keys and everything to get through all these doors and everything else, when I go out to my car, I'm still always looking around. Anybody hanging out, anybody lurking or anything, even in a property like this. What I've already thought about, for example, the grocery store that I go to most of the time over in Bel Air Bluffs, I've already run the scenarios in my mind. Well, if I'm in the store, what am I going to do? I hear a gunshot go off. What am I going to do? If I'm here in the store, if I'm there in the store, what am I going to do? The coffee shop, Starbucks, that goes through my mind. When I go to trivia, like on Wednesday evenings, that goes through my mind. Now, this is not a guarantee. I mean, certainly, like I said, if it's some surprise thing and I just happen to be standing beside the person who initiates this, I guess that's bad luck for me. But this is just the way it is. And I realize the rest of the world says, well, these Americans, man, they're crazy and they got to do something about guns and everything. We're not going to do anything about guns. There are more guns in this country than there are people, and it's not even close. We have 340 million people here. We might have twice as many guns. And, with mental health issues going up and suicide by cops going up and more addictions than ever, whether due to illegal or illegal drugs and everything, this isn't going away. And, I know that, hindsight's 2020. And they say, well, why was that guy even on the street? Well, they were, we have these, after the fact, you find out, well, this guy was on the cops' radar. And what does the general public think? Well, why didn't they do something about that guy? Well, what you don't know is they probably have just in that jurisdiction, they probably have their eye on 100 guys, mainly men. And even so, the odds of this happening are very, very low. This is what, it's all the unseen stuff that really factors in what is done about it. Unfortunately, when the public hears, well, the police had their eye, or the FBI was on a watch list or whatever else, the public automatically thinks, why didn't they do something about that guy? Well, maybe because there's 1,000 guys. And they haven't done anything wrong, and they have their rights too. And the statistics say it's still very, very low probability that any of these people are actually going to do something like that. But then it happens. And, I know the way I look at it as an American citizen is that in a free society, the way we run things here, there is just some of this that you have to put up with, even though it's horrible, it's painful, and everything else. You may say, well, they don't have this problem in Australia. They don't have the problem. Yeah, they don't have freedom of speech in those countries either. If you don't know, I realize they're great countries and I'm glad they're our allies. And I've been to Canada many times and everything else. They don't have freedom of speech in Canada. They don't have freedom of religion in Canada, not the way we do it here. And that costs something. So that's my public service announcement regarding that, regarding this. It's not going away. It's going to happen again. Not much can be done about it. All you can do is keep your heads on swivels and mentally go through the exercise. Well, if I hear something going on or I sense something going on and everything, what am I going to do? If you're not doing that, then when it actually happens, you're going to even be more deer in the headlights than you're going to be. I mean, the thing you have to understand about gunfire, as a person who has been to the gun range many, many, many times over the last 10 years, is that, gunfire, if you're not used to it, it can stun you. It's loud. Of course, I'm going there. I have ear protection on and everything, but I've shot all of my guns without ear protection. No fun. But it can be shocking. It can stun you because it can be so loud, especially, of course, if it's close. But if you get used to the sound of gunfire, if you're going to the gun range or whatever else, should something like that happen when you're at the grocery store or whatever, you just may keep your cool for that extra few seconds that may save your life, your family's life, your children's life, whoever. Because to just cross your fingers and say, man, I hope it doesn't help. Man, I'm just going to hope that we get rid of all the guns first. Good luck with that. Fishing says the bad boys or kooks will have guns. I'm loaded and ready. I left the United States. Too many crazies with guns. All right, call. Okay. That is my public service announcement regarding this. And, I once again, as a gun owner and everything else, I think that the gun lobby and the Second Amendment people and everything are wrong on some things regarding this. And I think if you were to really want my attitude toward all this, just go to Active Self-Protection. And when he analyzes these shootings and road rage incidents and everything else, John Correa there expresses very much the way I think just about the mentality. I think we've gotten to the point too much where people who own guns legally, they're not criminals or anything, but maybe they are just a little too eager they want almost something bad to happen so they can be the hero. And that's where you start getting into these situations like this parking lot shooting and things like that. I certainly believe that. Certainly. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at the disappearance of Robert Mohney. This is a disappearance that I've never heard of before, but it's caught my attention because it's gotten a lot because there's been some postings on social media. The investigating agency, the police department responsible, who has the paperwork on Robert's disappearance, has made public announcements recently, and it popped up, and I was like, oh, what's this? Decided to take a look at it, and so I'm going to present that to you right now. This is a disappearance that is on the Charlie Project, and it is on NamUs. However, you should know that I could not find any news articles on it from when it happened. Okay, although I did find some articles written years later where his friends and family have done interviews like in 2010 or whatever, and later. That certainly happened. But at the time of the disappearance, like on newspapers.com, nothing. Why that is, not sure. All right, so I'm going to read some of the accounts. I'm going to read the Charlie Project write-up on Rob's, I guess he just went by Rob's disappearance, and just some other things that have been written more recently, and including, I think, an article that was done recently, just kind of putting it back in everybody, in front of everybody. And then I will go to my questions that are still in my mind. And then I will go to my analysis, and then I'll tell you what I think happened. All right. First, the Charlie Project. Rob Mohney, I think that's how you, Mohney, Mohney, was last seen at his residence on Central College Road in Westerville, Ohio, on July 18th of 1996. He had returned home from work and prepared a steak dinner and was in the process of eating when he left his house in his red 1995 Pontiac Firebird, so like a Camaro, leaving his food out on the table. So he left halfway through the meal. He did not take his wallet with him. Mohney's roommate, and I'll get into this later. Mooney's roommate says it is unusual of him to interrupt a meal. I think that would be for anybody. Rob has never been heard from again. He was reported missing 2 days after he was last seen. His vehicle was found parked above the Hoover Reservoir a few days after his disappearance. This isn't like the Hoover Dam in Nevada. This is a Hoover Reservoir in Ohio. And I'm not sure where that is. But there was no sign of him at the scene. So he goes out to work. He seemingly comes home. This is an apartment, a house, I don't know. He's preparing dinner. He sits down to eat dinner. And what's left out of this is there's a story that he got a phone call. And he just took off and left. All right. So allow me. Rob was employed in the construction trade in 1996 and is described as a reliable worker. His loved one stated it is uncharacteristic of him to leave without warning or to be out of contact with them. Authorities believe he met with foul play, but no one has been charged in this case. His disappearance remains unsolved 30 years later. So some articles, an article that was written recently. I'm going to read that to you. According to Westerville Police Detective Steve Grubbs, July that day began normally for Robert. He had spent all day working, went to the grocery store on the way home, met with some friends. But in the middle of dinner, Mohney got a call. Neighbors saw him head down Central College Road, and no one has seen him since. 30 years have passed since Rob disappeared. Local law enforcement initially found his car near the Hoover Reservoir, but no reservoir. I'm not sure if I'm saying that word right or not. But no trace of Rob. At this point, Rob has officially been declared deceased. Police told Channel 10 they suspect foul play in connection with his disappearance. We have no inkling that Rob was ever suicidal. He was not seen parking his car where it was located. He wasn't just swallowed up by the earth one day, police said. He was on a mission to meet up with somebody. After he met with them, he was never seen again. I don't know if they have facts on that or they're just throwing that out there. As of now, all leads in this case have run out. To help close it, Detective Grubbs said the department is asking anyone who knows anything to speak up. He went on to say they're hoping that the age of this case will make potential tipsters more willing to come forward. Be it spiritual or just guilt, it can drive someone to come forward with even a little bit of information that they may think is not consequential, and it may just be that missing piece that police need for closure. If you have a tip in relation to this case, you can call 614-901-6866, or you can email tipline@westerville.org. Now, some other things I saw in some articles in past. In an article from some years ago, it seems they told one of Rob's ex-wives that they thought Rob had been killed. And it should be noted that the Hoover Reservoir is less than a mile from his home. So it's not like his car was found 20 miles away. It was found basically just down the road. You also need to know that he was reported missing by his estranged wife. So I guess they were still married, but not living together anymore. And it was not, his roommate was not his estranged wife. So the first question is, well, why didn't the roommate report him missing? Instead, his estranged wife reported him missing a couple days later. As I stated, police suspect foul play. I don't know why it says they've run out of leads. I'll get into that later. Don't know anything about his criminal record. I could not find anything anywhere. Of course, being this is back to 1996 as far as databases and everything, probably not reliable. Very well could be that he had a criminal record. I think he was 29 years old. There's nothing out there about his legal history, his drug history. I don't know. And you should know that another podcast at one point did look at his disappearance, but I've not listened to it, just so you know. So here are the questions that I have just from reading as much as I could. Went to the web sleuths to see what everybody had to say there. Anybody who might live in the area or might have known him. Of course, we know these threads can go back on web sleuths 20 years. Nothing that really overtly stood out to me at all. So my first question is, well, what did Rob have going on in his life? He had an estranged wife. I guess they were still married, just not living together. She was the one who reported him missing, so maybe that makes her look less suspicious. But once again, disappearances are about people, not circumstances. Of course, what's the tough part about analyzing Rob's disappearance is I don't know anything about his legal history. I don't know anything about his drug history. It does seem, though, like he had some relationship problems, being estranged, and I think that might have even been his second wife. Maybe he'd even been married a couple times. So there's that. If police are now saying foul play, well, what does that mean? Gets a call, allegedly, immediately goes out. Do they not know who called? I'd want to know more about the roommate. Is this roommate male or female? It's not even clear to me whether the roommate was even there when Rob left. Even though I have these articles and the Charlie Project and everything, it's not clear to me that somebody was actually there in the home or whatever it was and actually heard the phone ring. I'm guessing it wasn't a cell phone. Heard the phone ring, saw Rob answer the phone, have a conversation, and he went out. Is that what happened? It's not clear to me. All we know is the roommate saying, yeah, he just took off in the middle of eating. Maybe the only reason the roommate thinks that is because the roommate wasn't there. He comes home and things are like, a can of beer is half drank, the steak is half eaten, the baked potatoes half eaten, and the wallet's still there. And the roommate could infer, it seems like he left in the middle of something. But being that we heard about this phone call, it would seem to infer that somebody else was there, I think. But it would help to know who is this roommate? I could not find this roommate's name anywhere. I don't even know, male or female. I don't know. How long had they lived together? How did they know each other? What was the connection between them? Should we consider the roommate a suspect? I also read somewhere, although I didn't read it here, it did take a few days to find the car. Well, why did it take so long to find the car if the car was less than a mile down the road and it was at a place that I would think people would be? At this reservoir, I'm guessing that there might have been parking spaces and might be a lookout, might be a park there or something, as many reservoirs like that have. Then why did it take so long to find his car? Regarding the car, were the keys in it? Was it locked? What was the status of the car? This Hoover Reservoir, how busy is it at the time of his disappearance? If we're to accept that particular day in the afternoon or the early evening, it's July. Of course, it's going to be light out until after 8 o'clock. How many people would have been at the reservoir at that time? Because it seems, let's just put this out there, it seems that he got a call. Somebody wanted to meet him at the reservoir. He went down there and something happened. But like I said, if the car wasn't found for a few days, is that really what happened? I wonder. Anything unusual or noteworthy about that particular day? The wallet that was left behind, of course, this is wallets being left behind, usually a bad sign. Did the wallet have any money in it? So when they found the wallet, was there cash in it? Was it just sitting there? And of course, what was going on in Rob's life? How was work going? What was his money situation and all of these things? We just don't know a lot about Rob to be, very overtly insightful into what kind of guy he is. Of course, if we were to find out that he owed people money, if we were to find out that he did have a criminal record and was still hanging out with those people, if we were to find out that he was into drugs, whether doing them or selling them or something like that, this is all very, very noteworthy information. Certainly overtly so. We all know that. But the problem is, there's nothing that's been said by the police. There's nothing that's been said by the people who knew him in the interviews or they're quoted. All we know is it seems like he had a regular day of work. Seemingly he came home, I guess, and then he gets a call. I guess somebody was there to see this all happening. And then right in the middle of a meal, he leaves. Doesn't come back. Car eventually found right down the road. And his wallet's still at home. His half of his steak is there and everything else. So my analysis. Now, the first thing I have in my analysis is that this has all sorts of foul play stink all over it. The problem is that in looking at this disappearance, even though the police are saying it now in 2026 that they suspect foul play, in the other articles that I've been able to find, even though I couldn't find anything written for 1996, it doesn't seem like they always thought that way. It's just what they're saying now. Oh, it's probably foul play. I just don't get that idea from looking at older articles, my opinion. It's also unclear to me, okay, the car was found at the reservoir. I have to take for granted that they searched the reservoir, and I didn't look this up on the map. How big is it? Does it have a river? Does it have a current? How often is it used? Is this a suicide place? I don't have any information there. We don't know, did Rob go there? Did he usually meet people there? Did he go fishing there? We don't know the connection between Rob and the reservoir. If there was none, it's noteworthy. But what also sticks out in my mind, let's just say that I don't know if there are any facts to support this, but let's just say somebody called and said, meet me at the reservoir. Well, the reservoir was only a mile down the road. Why couldn't this person just come over to Rob's? What's up with that? This person lived 20 minutes away, whoever it was, and called, you know what? I need to talk to you. Why couldn't that person just come over to wherever Rob was eating a steak? It's a valid, very valid question. Now, whether the police considered that, I don't know. Something I think also that we've learned about disappearances is that criminals don't like to walk. Maybe the best example was one that happened right here where I live, Kelly Rothwell. She was breaking up with David Perry. She went home, seemingly told him, I'm leaving you. Seemingly he killed her. She's still missing. And then he took off for New York. And what seemingly did he do? He drove her car down the street like a mile and a half. In fact, I was just down there today. He parked the car right near the post office that I go to, and I was at that post office today. I drove right by where he ditched her car. And then he surely walked back to their place and then took off for New York. Now, why didn't he put the car 20 miles away? Because it's hard to get back from 20 miles away. Whereas when you put the car right down the street, it's easy to get home. So when I think about Rob's car only being less than a mile away, this starts to make me think somebody put the car there so they could walk home very easily. And then I start thinking about the roommate. I mean, really, what are the odds? So like I have here, car only a mile from the house, easily walkable. Criminals realize they need to put the car somewhere, but they don't want to have to walk back too far. Because, of course, at some point, it's not walkable. And also, the farther you have to walk, the more likely you're going to be seen. But they don't want to leave the car at the actual disappearance place because then that makes things complicated. So they kind of try to find a nice medium by parking the car away, but not so far away that they can't get back. Very, very common. Very common. We also have to realize the disappearances in the middle of things are very rare. I don't know if we've actually, I know that we had, we maybe had a couple disappearances where it seems like somebody was doing something, like it might have been, for example, who was it? Was washing clothes and, she disappeared. That might also have been in Ohio, coincidentally. And we think maybe she went down the laundry chute. But we have to remember, it's fairly rare. And certainly when it comes to meals, people disappearing in the middle of eating, really rare. So we have to keep that in mind. As far as these phone calls, surely the police know who called, but obviously that's not led anywhere. But on the other hand, it seems that this is what motivated Rob to leave his place. That is tough to square up. That is hard to understand because it does seem they would know who called going back to those days. Maybe they don't, but I think they do. Still, they're saying they've run out of leads. This is hard to understand. Of course, the idea is call to meet him somewhere and, was he lured somewhere? Now, I did see somebody replied to one of the posts regarding the article, and some guy who knew Rob way back then said Rob was a good guy. Whether that means anything, I don't know. Does that mean he was a law-abiding citizen, salt of the earth, no problems? I don't know. Would also say, this seems like a case of luring, but would it not be resolved by now if it were? He gets called to go meet somebody, and he goes there, and the tables are turned on him. You'd think it would be solved by now. Let's see if anybody's saying anything. Let's see here. Rockford, could it have been the roommate's steak dinner? A lot of the account seems to be coming from the roommate, right? Right. Maureen, might have been the drum pickup meeting place. The old barn down the road from my family in Slippery Rock was the drug leading place. All right, Maureen. Could be. Of course, she's talking about Pennsylvania. The question is, would you plan a murder? If we're to think that Rob was murdered, would you plan a murder this way? You know, given that I don't know the situation regarding the law of drugs, the reason could be anything, including women. In fact, I would say, as a straight guy myself, it does seem, my perception as a man, as a straight guy, that if you get a call from a woman saying, you know what, he's doing, my boyfriend is beating me up, you got to come help me, this is going on. That's the type of situation that I think a guy would leave in the middle of a meal. Whereas if you are in the drug business and you're having your steak dinner and somebody calls you and says, hey, I want to meet you for a drug deal, I think your average person in the drug trade is going to say, hey, I'll go meet you after my steak's done. I think one of the few situations where a guy would leave in the middle of a steak dinner would be because of a woman calling. Now, of course, that wallet. Now, would he leave so quickly as to forget his wallet? It seems unlikely. You know, middle of a meal, it was an emergency. He left so quickly, he didn't take his wallet. It also sticks out to me. It is weird to me. Once again, my experience, the roommate is there. The roommate is talking. Roommate realized something wasn't right, but it was an estranged wife 2 days later who filed the report. So this is a tough one to analyze. What sticks out to me, I think, being that we don't know enough about Rod to make a decision, it sticks out to me that the car was right down the street, and it sticks out that the wallet was there. And it sticks out that this meal was halfway through, whether it was staged or whatever else. I think statistically, I don't know who this roommate is. Might be the best person in the world. I could be totally off on this, but I don't know who this person is. This sounds like a roommate situation. This sounds like a situation where something happens between two roommates, a death occurs, and the one roommate has to make the other roommate disappear and has to think of something in the moment. That's what it seems like and it very well could be that this phone call was staged by somebody, a friend of the roommate. It seems like a pretty bad plan. But on the other hand, I'm thinking if this were something where he got called and the roommate had nothing to do with it and Rob took off, that this would be resolved by now. But I think the car was staged. And I have a hard time. It was something so bad that he left without his wallet. It eventually scrambled his brain that he took off without his wallet, because as men, we usually keep our keys and our wallet together. Keys of the car and wallet together. So you grab the keys, didn't grab the wallet. At this point, 30 years in, I think I'm inclined to, and then on top of that, the roommate was not the one who filed the police report. I think this was a roommate situation. I think. So that's where I am. You may think differently, but this, let's put it this way. If this were a woman missing halfway through a meal, her car is down the street, her purse is there, and the roommate's saying, I don't know what happened, we know what would be thinking. Man or woman roommate would be thinking the roommate is responsible. So I see no reason to think differently at this point regarding Rob Mohney's disappearance. Let's see here. Rockford. Multiple ex-wives, maybe a Tyler North scenario. Could have been hooking up with one of his ex-wives. Could be, but forgets his wallet. I don't know. Could be Rockford. You very well could be right. But like I said, I think that this woman would be thinking the roommate. I think. So that's where I am. Overall, I'm with you. Roommate next. Okay. All right. So that's Rob Mohney. Certainly would love to feature his disappearance on the podcast. But probably a lot of people reaching out to his family right now, given that it's back in the news. I'll do my best. This Friday, we have a new disappearance. The newest disappearance that Unfound has ever covered. Devlin Tate, T-I-Tait. He went missing from Lake Odessa, Michigan on April 21st of 2025. So just last year. And his grandmother, Tamara, is the guest. Devlin had a lot of things going on. He was on the spectrum. He had some physical issues. He had a criminal record. He dropped out of school. A lot going on. And he was living with Tamara, and his daily routine was going out, walking around town, checking things out, come home, no big deal. Well, on April 21st, he went out, never came back. And was seen on video going into a market there to buy a few things. He was by himself. He talked to his brother on the phone while he was out. Didn't seem like anything was wrong, but he never returned, never seen again. So we're going to take a look at his disappearance this Friday. He is on the Charlie Project, is on NamUs. A lot of postings about Devlin's disappearance. You can find them. Once again, this Friday, Devlin Tate, T-A-I-T, Lake Odessa, Michigan, April 21st of 2025. And that is all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me a little piece of your Monday night. Many of you do this every week. I really appreciate it. All of you are listening to this as a podcast. I appreciate that as well when it comes out on Tuesdays. Given that I talked about it tonight, it seems like a good as message as ever. Keep your heads on swivels out there. Do not become victims. Charlie, say hi to your sons. I know one of them just had a birthday recently. I texted them. And we will do this all again next Monday. Thank you so much. Thank you for the comments. I'm a dinosaur. Thank you for your question about Nancy Guthrie. Good night.